My younger sister looked at me and declared, "I need $1.5 million from your trust fund for my entertainment." At her graduation, my parents coldly added, "That's your responsibility. Refuse and don't call this family anymore." When I refused, they beat me unconscious. But just a few hours later, my grandmother's lawyer arrived, and the auditorium smelled like cheap perfume and celebration. I sat 3 rows from the front, watching Brooke cross the stage to collect her bachelor's degree in hospitality management. My mother wept. My father stood to applaud. Everyone around me acted like this was the achievement of the century, even though Brooke had barely scraped by with a 2.1 GPA after switching majors twice. I clapped politely, my hands meeting in a rhythm that felt hollow. I was 28 years old, sitting here watching my 23-year-old sister collect a degree she'd barely earned. Afterward, we gathered at Marcello's, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, where my parents had reserved the private dining room. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. White tablecloths draped every surface. Waiters in pressed black vests circulated with trays of Prosecco. The whole scene felt orchestrated, like they were celebrating royalty instead of a girl who'd spent most of college partying. Brooke held court at the head of the table, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders in perfect waves. She wore a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Everyone fawned over her. Aunts and uncles asked about her plans. Cousins congratulated her. My parents beamed like she'd just won a Nobel Prize. I nursed a glass of water at the far end of the table, feeling like furniture. Halfway through the main course, Brooke tapped her fork against her wine glass. The room fell silent. She stood up, smoothing her dress with practiced grace, and smiled at everyone with that pageant queen expression she'd perfected over the years. "I have an announcement," she said, her voice bright and rehearsed. "I've been offered a spot in an international hospitality management program in Switzerland. It's a 2-year master's degree that will set me up for a career managing luxury resorts worldwide." The room erupted in applause. My mother actually squealed. I noticed Brooke didn't say accepted, she said offered. Knowing her, she'd probably received some promotional material and decided that counted as acceptance. Brooke's smile widened. Then her eyes found mine across the table. Something shifted in her expression, a calculation I'd seen before. "The program costs about $1.5 million total for everything. Tuition, living expenses, travel, the works," she continued. My stomach dropped. "Luckily," Brooke said, her gaze locking on me now, "my amazing older sister has a trust fund from Grandma Ruth, and I know she's going to help me achieve my dreams." The room went quiet. Every head turned toward me. I set my fork down carefully. "Brooke, we should talk about this privately." "Why?" She tilted her head, her smile never wavering. "We're all family here. You got Grandma's trust fund when she passed. It's only fair that you share it with me. I need this opportunity." My father cleared his throat. "Your sister is right. Family helps family." "I've already discussed this with Mom and Dad," Brooke added. "They agree that you should give me the money. It's not like you're doing anything important with it anyway." Heat crept up my neck. I worked as a software engineer at a mid-sized tech company. I lived in a modest 1-bedroom apartment. I drove a 10-year-old Honda. The trust fund sat mostly untouched because I'd been saving it for a house down payment, maybe starting my own business someday. Grandma Ruth had left it specifically to me because we'd been close. She'd spent hours teaching me to code when I was young, encouraging my interests when my parents dismissed them. "That money was left to me," I said quietly. "Grandma Ruth specified that in her will." My mother's expression hardened. "Your grandmother would want you to help your sister." "She left Brooke money too," I pointed out, "in a separate account." Brooke waved her hand dismissively. "That was only $50,000. That won't even cover 1 semester." "What happened to that money?" I asked. She looked away. "I used it for things I needed." Translation? Designer bags, trips to Cabo, bottle service at clubs. I'd seen the Instagram posts. My father leaned forward, his jaw set in that way that meant the conversation was over. "This discussion is finished. You're going to give your sister the money she needs. That's what family does. I'm not giving away $1.5 million, I said firmly. The private dining room felt suddenly airless. My aunt shifted uncomfortably in her seat. A cousin coughed. Brooke's smile finally cracked, replaced by genuine shock. She wasn't used to hearing the word no. My mother stood up abruptly. Then I think you should leave. Mom. You heard me. If you can't support your sister, then you're not part of this family anymore. Don't bother calling. Don't visit. You're choosing money over your own flesh and blood. My father nodded. We didn't raise you to be selfish. The irony almost made me laugh. They'd raised me to be invisible. Every accomplishment I'd achieved had been met with indifference. When I graduated high school as valedictorian, they'd barely attended the ceremony because Brooke had a dance recital the same day. When I got accepted to MIT, my father complained about the tuition, even though I'd earned a full scholarship. When I landed my first job, my mother asked when I was going to settle down and get married instead of playing around with computers. But Brooke, everything Brooke did was golden. I gathered my purse and stood up. Fine. My mother's eyes narrowed. Fine. If that's how you want it, fine. I'm not giving Brooke my trust fund. If that means I'm not family anymore, then I guess I'm not family anymore. I walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard Brooke's voice, shrill and indignant. Are you seriously going to let her leave? My father's chair scraped against the floor. I should have kept walking. I should have pushed through the door and left, but I hesitated just for a second, right at the threshold. Some part of me, the stupid, hopeful part, thought maybe he was coming to apologize. Instead, his hand closed around my upper arm. Hard. You're not going anywhere until you agree, he said. I tried to pull away. Let go of me. He didn't. His grip tightened. My mother appeared on my other side, her face twisted with anger. How dare you embarrass us like this, she hissed, after everything we've done for you. You haven't done anything for me, I shot back, louder than I intended. Years of resentment boiled over. You've ignored me my entire life. The only reason you're talking to me now is because you want my money. My father's other hand came up. I saw it happening, but couldn't react fast enough. The slap connected with my cheek, snapping my head to the side. Pain exploded across my face. I stumbled backward. My mother grabbed my shoulder, shoving me. I lost my balance, crashing into the wall. My head hit the decorative molding with a sickening crack. You ungrateful... My father snarled as he came at me again. He came at me again. This time, his fist caught my ribs. Air whooshed out of my lungs. I doubled over, gasping. My mother's nails raked across my arm as she shoved me toward the ground. I fell hard, my temple striking the corner of a side table on the way down. Everything went fuzzy. I heard screaming. Maybe mine, maybe someone else's. Footsteps pounded around me. Hands grabbed at my clothes, my hair. Another blow landed on my back, then another to my stomach. Stop, someone was yelling. You're going to kill her. My uncle's voice, maybe. I couldn't tell. The room spun. Blood filled my mouth where I'd bitten my tongue. Pain radiated from everywhere at once. She deserves it, my mother said. Selfish brat. Another kick connected with my side. Darkness crept in from the edges of my vision. I curled into myself, arms over my head, trying to protect my vital organs the way I'd learned in some long-ago self-defense class. Then nothing. I woke up to fluorescent lights and the steady beep of monitors. A hospital. My entire body throbbed. When I tried to sit up, agony lanced through my ribs. Easy, a nurse said, appearing beside the bed, her face kind. You've got 3 cracked ribs, a concussion, and a lot of bruising. You need to stay still. What happened? My voice came out as a rasp. Someone called 911 from the restaurant. You were unconscious when the ambulance arrived. She adjusted my IV. The police want to talk to you when you're feeling up to it. I closed my eyes. The last few hours came back in fragments. Brooke's announcement, my parents' demands, the beating. They'd actually beaten me unconscious over money. A throat cleared from the doorway. I opened my eyes to see a woman in a gray suit standing there, holding a leather briefcase. She was maybe 60, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and sharp blue eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Miss Winters," she said, "my name is Diane Morrison. I'm the attorney who handled your grandmother Ruth's estate." I blinked at her, confused. "How did you know I was here?" "Your uncle called me. He was quite concerned about what happened tonight." She stepped into the room, her heels clicking on the linoleum. "I came as soon as I heard. We need to talk about your trust fund and your grandmother's estate planning." My stomach lurched. "If my parents sent you—" "They didn't," she said quickly. She pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. "In fact, they have no idea I'm here. And after what they did tonight, I think it's important you understand exactly what your grandmother set up for you." She opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. "When Ruth created your trust fund 12 years ago, shortly before she passed, she included several protective clauses. She was very specific about who could access the money and under what circumstances." Diane flipped through the papers. "The trust fund she left specifically to you is completely separate from the family trust she established. That family trust provides annual distributions to your parents and sister." I frowned. I didn't know about any family trust. Ruth kept it separate intentionally. She wanted you to have your own resources without family interference. Diane's expression was serious. "Your parents each receive $75,000 per year, and Brooke receives $30,000 annually. Those payments continue for another 3 years, at which point the family trust dissolves." My head spun. "So they already get money every year?" "Yes," she said. "And your personal trust, the one everyone's fighting over, was left exclusively to you. She made it crystal clear that the funds were for you alone. No one else in your family has any legal claim to them whatsoever." "I know that," I said, "but they wanted me to just give it to Brooke anyway." "Which you cannot do, even if you wanted to," Diane said. "The trust is structured so that you can't make any gifts or transfers exceeding $10,000 to family members without my approval as trustee. Ruth included that clause specifically to protect you from being pressured by relatives." I stared at her. "What?" "Your grandmother knew your family," Diane said gently. "She knew how they treated you versus your sister. She anticipated something like this might happen." She pulled out another document. "There's more. If anyone in your family attempts to coerce, threaten, or harm you to access these funds, the trust includes an automatic penalty clause." "What kind of penalty?" I asked. "Any family member who attempts to force you to give them money from your personal trust is automatically disinherited from the family trust," she said. "That includes the annual distributions your parents currently receive." My breath caught. "So if they hurt me to get my money—" "Those payments stop immediately and permanently," Diane said, "and the remaining funds from the family trust revert to you instead." I couldn't process it. Why didn't I know about any of this? "Because Ruth instructed me to tell you only if it became necessary," Diane said quietly. "She hoped your family would leave you alone. She hoped they'd respect her wishes." She sighed. Clearly, that didn't happen. Diane pulled out her phone. "I need you to tell me exactly what happened tonight, every detail, and I need to take photos of your injuries." Over the next hour, I told her everything. She took notes, recorded my statement, and photographed every bruise and cut. When I finished, she nodded grimly. "That's more than enough. Attempted coercion, assault, battery, the penalty clause will definitely apply." She tucked her phone away. "I'll file the necessary paperwork first thing tomorrow morning. Your parents' distributions will be terminated. Brooke's as well." "They're going to come after me," I said quietly. "Let them try," Diane replied. "I'll also be filing for a restraining order on your behalf. And given what happened tonight, I suspect the police will be pressing criminal charges." She stood up. "In the meantime, you need to focus on recovering. Don't contact your family. Don't respond to their messages. Let me handle everything." She left me with her business card and instructions to call immediately if anyone bothered me. 5 days later, I was discharged from the hospital with a prescription for painkillers and strict instructions to rest. The concussion had been severe enough that they kept me for observation longer than the typical 3-day stay. My uncle, my father's brother, who'd apparently been the one yelling for them to stop, picked me up and drove me to a hotel. He paid for 2 weeks' stay and apologized at least 20 times for not intervening sooner. "I didn't think they'd actually hurt you," he said, his voice rough with guilt. "I thought they were just arguing. By the time I realized what was happening, it's not your fault," I assured him. He'd been the one who called 911. He probably saved my life. The calls started the next day. My mother left 17 voicemails, her tone progressing from angry to wheedling to desperate. My father sent dozens of texts, most of them threats. Brooke messaged me on every social media platform, calling me selfish, heartless, cruel. She posted vague statements on Instagram about family betrayal and fake sisters. I blocked all of them. Diane called on day 8. "I filed for temporary restraining orders on your behalf," she said. "Given the severity of the assault and the threats, the judge approved them immediately. Your parents and sister cannot contact you in any way. Permanent orders will be scheduled within the next few weeks." She paused. "And I have some interesting news." My chest tightened. "What kind of news?" "Your parents tried to file a lawsuit claiming they're entitled to your trust funds as Ruth's children." "Can they do that?" I asked. "They can try. They'll lose," she said, sounding almost amused. "The trust is ironclad. But their attempt to sue you triggers another clause." Another clause. Of course it did. Ruth included a provision that if any heir contests the trust or attempts to claim funds not designated to them, they forfeit all future inheritance and must repay any distributions they've already received. "Are you serious?" "Completely," Diane said. "Your parents now owe the estate the remaining value of the distributions they would have received, approximately $450,000 combined. Brooke owes about $90,000. I laughed. It hurt my ribs, but I couldn't help it. "They have 60 days to pay," Diane continued, "or the estate will place liens on their property and assets. They're going to lose everything." "Most likely," she said. "Your father already refinanced their house twice to pay for Brooke's lifestyle. They don't have that kind of liquidity." She paused again. "I should also mention that several of your relatives have reached out to me. Your Aunt Stephanie, your Uncle Paul. They want you to know they had no idea what your parents were planning. They'd like to maintain relationships with you, if you're comfortable with that." I thought about my aunt who used to sneak me books when I was young. My uncle who taught me how to change a tire when my parents refused. The relatives who'd actually cared, even if quietly. "I'll think about it," I said. The criminal trial happened 8 months later. My parents were both charged with assault and battery. Brooke was charged as an accessory, since she'd encouraged the beating and done nothing to stop it. My father's lawyer tried to argue that emotions had run high, that it was a family dispute blown out of proportion. The prosecutor presented photos of my injuries, medical records documenting the concussion, the cracked ribs, the contusions, testimony from my uncle, restaurant staff, and other witnesses who'd seen or heard the attack. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. My father got 18 months in prison. My mother got 15. Brooke got probation and community service, though her master's program immediately rescinded her acceptance after learning about the charges. I didn't attend the sentencing. Diane went on my behalf and sent me a text afterward. "Justice served." They looked devastated. Good. The foreclosure notice on my parents' house went out 2 weeks later. They couldn't pay back what they owed the estate, couldn't afford the mortgage anymore, couldn't maintain the lifestyle they'd built on borrowed money and my grandmother's generosity. They lost everything. The house, the cars, their reputations in the community. Brooke moved into a studio apartment in a bad part of town and got a job waiting tables. Her Instagram went dark. Last I heard, she was dating some guy with a motorcycle and no prospects. I moved on, but the path forward wasn't as simple as those 2 words might suggest. The first few weeks after being discharged, I stayed in the hotel room my uncle had paid for. My body healed faster than my mind. The ribs stopped aching, the bruises faded from purple to yellow to nothing. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's hand coming toward my face. Every unexpected noise made me flinch. My Uncle Paul checked on me daily, bringing groceries and keeping me company. His wife, my Aunt Stephanie, visited with magazines and homemade soup. They were careful not to overwhelm me, but their presence reminded me that not everyone in the family was toxic. "We should have seen it sooner," Stephanie said one afternoon, her eyes red. "The way they treated you versus Brooke. We knew it wasn't right, but we didn't think they'd ever... this." "It's not your fault," I assured her. But their guilt was palpable. They'd been witnesses to years of favoritism, of dismissal, of emotional neglect. They'd stayed quiet to keep the peace. Now they were trying to make amends. I found a therapist through a recommendation from the hospital. Dr. Angela Reeves was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense approach. She didn't sugarcoat anything during our first session. "What happened to you was trauma," she said plainly. "Your parents, the people who were supposed to protect you, attacked you. That's going to take time to process, years probably. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying." I appreciated her honesty. We met twice a week initially, then once a week as I stabilized. She taught me grounding techniques for when the panic attacks hit. She helped me understand that my family's treatment of me hadn't started with the beating. It had been a lifetime of emotional neglect that culminated in physical violence. "They saw you as a resource," Dr. Reeves explained during one session. "Not a person, not a daughter or sister, a resource to be exploited when needed and ignored otherwise." The clarity hurt, but it also freed me. I stopped wondering what I'd done wrong. I stopped asking myself if I could have handled the situation differently. They'd shown me who they were. I'd finally accepted it. During my second month at the hotel, I started looking for a permanent place to live. The hotel felt temporary, unstable. I needed a space that was mine. Diane connected me with a real estate agent, a cheerful woman named Patricia Hang, who didn't ask questions about why a 28-year-old with no furniture was house hunting alone. We looked at 15 places. Too small, too expensive, bad neighborhood, weird smell. Nothing felt right until Patricia showed me a 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood on the east side of town. It had a front porch, a fenced backyard, and enough space that I wouldn't feel cramped. The kitchen had been recently renovated with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. One of the extra bedrooms would make a perfect home office. "This is it," I said, standing in the empty living room as sunlight streamed through the windows. Patricia smiled. "I thought you'd like this one." I put in an offer that afternoon. The trust fund made the purchase possible without a mortgage, though Diane had advised me to keep the majority of the money invested. "Your grandmother wanted you to be comfortable, not reckless," she'd said. The house closed 3 weeks later. I hired movers even though I barely owned anything. My entire adult life fit into a dozen boxes. Clothes, books, my laptop, a few kitchen items. Walking into that empty house with my pathetic collection of belongings should have felt depressing. Instead, it felt like possibility. I spent the first week just existing in the space. I ordered a mattress online and slept on the floor until it arrived. I ate takeout sitting on the kitchen counter. I sat on the back porch at night listening to crickets and feeling something loosen in my chest. This was mine. My parents couldn't take it away. Brooke couldn't demand it. Nobody could tell me I didn't deserve it. Slowly, I began to furnish the place. A couch from a local furniture store, a kitchen table with 4 chairs, even though I lived alone. Dr. Reeves said it was important to create space for future relationships, even if they felt impossible now. A desk for one of the spare bedrooms, bookshelves that I filled with technical manuals and novels I'd been meaning to read for years. I hung artwork on the walls, abstract pieces from local artists that spoke to me in ways I couldn't articulate. I bought plants and managed to keep most of them alive. I invested in a coffee maker that cost more than my first laptop and learned to make pour-overs. The house became my sanctuary. Stephanie and Paul became regular fixtures in my life. Sunday brunches with Stephanie became a tradition. She'd arrive with pastries and fresh flowers, and we'd sit at my kitchen table for hours talking about everything except my parents. Paul came over to help me assemble furniture and teach me basic home repair. He showed me how to change air filters and unclog drains, practical knowledge my parents had never bothered to share. "You're doing really well," Stephanie said one Sunday, looking around the condo. "I'm proud of you." The words hit harder than they should have. Nobody in my immediate family had ever said they were proud of me. Not when I graduated, not when I got my job. Never. "Thanks," I managed, my throat tight. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Ruth would be proud too. She always knew you were special." Work became my next focus. I'd been on medical leave for 7 months, first recovering physically, then dealing with the trial and its aftermath. My company had been understanding throughout everything. My boss, Kevin Martinez, called every 2 weeks to check in, never pressuring me to return, but making it clear my position was waiting whenever I was ready. "Take your time," he'd said after the trial ended. "We've got your back." I returned in month 8, nervous and uncertain. My colleagues welcomed me back without prying into what had happened. Jennifer, who sat in the cubicle next to mine, brought me coffee every morning for a week and included me in lunch plans without making a big deal of it. The work itself was a relief. Code made sense in a way people didn't. If something broke, you could debug it. If something didn't work, you could fix it. There were clear problems with logical solutions, no emotional manipulation, no hidden agendas. I threw myself into projects. I stayed late most nights, finding comfort in the quiet office after everyone else had left. I took on extra assignments. I volunteered for the challenging problems that other developers avoided. Kevin noticed. 3 months after my return, he called me into his office. I went in with my stomach churning, expecting criticism or concern about my excessive hours. Instead, he offered me a promotion. "Senior developer, 20% raise, leadership opportunities. You're one of our best," he said simply. "I should have promoted you a year ago, but I wasn't sure you'd stay. Now I am." I accepted immediately. The new role came with more responsibility, but also more respect. Suddenly, junior developers were coming to me with questions. I was invited to architecture meetings. My opinions mattered. The validation felt strange. I'd spent so long being invisible in my family that being seen at work was almost uncomfortable. But I learned to accept it, to recognize that I'd earned this through skill and hard work, not manipulation or favoritism. 6 months after the beating, Diane called with an update. "My parents have officially declared bankruptcy," she said. "The house sold at auction for less than they owed. They've lost their cars. Most of their possessions have been sold to cover debts." I waited for an emotion to hit. Triumph, satisfaction, vindication. Nothing came. "They're living in a 1-bedroom apartment in the industrial district," Diane continued. "Your father is working at a warehouse. Your mother is cleaning houses." I should have felt something. Instead, I felt empty. "They made their choices," I said. "These are the consequences." "What about Brooke?" I asked. "Still waitressing," Diane said. "She's been arrested twice for shoplifting. Petty stuff, makeup, clothes. Charges were dropped both times, but it's on record." She paused. "She's also tried to contact you through several fake social media accounts. I've documented each instance in case we need to strengthen the restraining order." "She needs to move on," I said. "So do your parents," Diane replied. "They're not." Her voice turned serious. "I've heard through mutual acquaintances that they're telling people you stole their money, that Ruth's trust fund should have been split equally. They're painting themselves as victims." "Let them," I said. "Anyone who believes that isn't worth my time." Still, the lies bothered me more than I wanted to admit. I found myself Googling my parents' names, reading through their sparse social media posts. My mother had written a long Facebook post about ungrateful children and financial abuse. Several of her friends commented with support and sympathy. I showed it to Dr. Reeves during our next session. She read it carefully, then handed my phone back. "How does this make you feel?" "Angry." "They have to," Dr. Reeves said. "Accepting responsibility would mean acknowledging what they did, that they assaulted their own daughter over money, that they destroyed their family through greed and entitlement. That's too painful for them to face, so they rewrite the narrative. But people believe them." "Some people will," she said, "especially people who don't know the full story. But the people who matter, your aunt, your uncle, your friends, they know the truth." She leaned forward. You can't control what your parents say or who believes them. You can only control how you respond. And the best response is living well. Living well. The concept felt abstract, but I tried to embrace it. I started going to the gym. Not obsessively, just enough to feel strong again. To remind myself that my body was mine and I could make it powerful. I hired a personal trainer named Marcus, who pushed me harder than I'd ever pushed myself. After 3 months, I could do real push-ups. After 6, I could deadlift my body weight. I felt like one. Strong, capable, unstoppable. I also started dating, though that was messier. The first guy I went out with was a software engineer I'd met at a conference. Dinner was fine until he started complaining about his family expecting too much from him financially. I made an excuse and left before dessert. The second guy seemed promising until he mentioned that his ex-girlfriend had been too independent and he preferred women who needed him. I ghosted him after that. I went on a few more dates, none of them spectacular. But I learned that I enjoyed the process less than I enjoyed my own company. Maybe that would change eventually. Maybe it wouldn't. Either way, I was fine. Meanwhile, my career continued to flourish. 8 months after my promotion, Kevin approached me with a proposal. We're opening a satellite office, he explained. Focus on emerging technologies, AI, machine learning, blockchain. I want you to lead the development team. Me? I couldn't hide my shock. You're the best fit, he said. You've got the technical skills, the leadership potential, and the vision. Plus, you're not afraid to take risks. He smiled. What do you say? I said yes, without hesitation. The new role meant longer hours and more stress, but also creative freedom. I hired a team of 5 developers, all brilliant and hungry. We worked out of a co-working space downtown, surrounded by other startups and entrepreneurs. The energy was infectious. We brainstormed late into the night, fueled by pizza and ambition. We celebrated small victories and learned from failures. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was building something meaningful. One of my developers, a 24-year-old named Tyler Chen, reminded me of myself at that age. Smart, driven, underestimated. He came to me one day looking nervous. Can I ask you something personal? I nodded. Sure. How do you deal with family that doesn't support you? The question caught me off guard. Why do you ask? He shifted uncomfortably. My parents want me to quit tech and take over their restaurant. They think this is a waste of time. They keep telling me I'm throwing away my future. I studied him for a moment. What do you want? This, he said immediately. I want to build things, create things. I don't want to spend my life serving dumplings. No offense to my parents. Then do that, I said. Your parents' dreams for you aren't your responsibility. You get one life. Live it for yourself, not for them. But they're going to be so disappointed. They'll get over it or they won't, I said. Either way, you can't sacrifice your happiness for theirs. I paused, deciding how much to share. My family tried to control me too. They wanted me to give them money and live my life according to their priorities. When I refused, they hurt me badly. Walking away was the best decision I ever made. Tyler's eyes widened. What happened? I gave him the abbreviated version, leaving out the worst details. He listened intently, then nodded slowly. Thank you, he said. I needed to hear that. He stayed with the company. 6 months later, he showed me a text from his mother. I don't understand your choices, but I'm trying to accept them. Progress, I told him. A year and a half after the beating, Diane called with unexpected news. My parents hired another lawyer, she said. They're attempting to appeal the trust fund decision. My stomach sank. On what grounds? This lawyer is arguing that Ruth was mentally incompetent when she created the trust, and that undue influence was exerted, Diane said. It's completely baseless. Ruth was evaluated by multiple doctors. She was sharp as a tack until the day she died. But we'll need to respond to the motion. The appeal process dragged on for months. More legal fees, more paperwork, more reminders that my parents wouldn't stop trying to take what wasn't theirs. The judge dismissed the appeal in a single paragraph, calling it frivolous and without merit. He also ordered my parents to pay the estate's legal fees, adding another $45,000 to their existing debt. They're never going to accept this, I told Diane afterward. No, she agreed. They're not, but they're also running out of options. I tried to focus on the positives. My satellite office was thriving. We developed 3 successful applications that caught the attention of major investors. Kevin talked about spinning us off into our own company, with me as co-founder. You've got something special here, he said, gesturing around the office. This doesn't feel like a corporate satellite. It feels like a startup. We should make it official. The idea terrified and excited me in equal measure. Starting my own company meant risk. It meant potential failure. But it also meant freedom. I spent weeks running numbers, consulting with Diane about financial implications, and talking to Dr. Reeves about whether I was ready for this level of responsibility. What does your gut tell you? Dr. Reeves asked. That I should do it, I said. Then do it. I used part of the trust fund to buy a beautiful 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. I started my own software development company, which grew faster than I'd expected. I adopted a dog, a golden retriever named Max, who greeted me every day like I was the most important person in the world. I reconnected with my Aunt Stephanie and Uncle Paul. We had dinner once a month. They apologized constantly for not seeing how bad things were, for not standing up to my parents sooner. I forgave them. They weren't the ones who hurt me. The company launch happened on a Tuesday in September. We spent 3 months preparing, incorporating, filing patents, securing our first round of funding. Kevin connected us with investors, and we pitched to 7 firms before finding the right partner. The day we signed the paperwork, I took my team out for dinner at the nicest restaurant in town. We toasted with expensive wine, laughing and dreaming about the future. Tyler gave a rambling speech about how much the opportunity meant to him. Sarah, our UX designer, cried happy tears. Here's to taking chances, I said, raising my glass. Everyone echoed the sentiment. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely optimistic about what was coming next. Max came into my life shortly after the company's successful launch, quite by accident. I'd been at the farmer's market on a Saturday morning when I saw the adoption event. A local rescue had set up tables with photos of available dogs. Most people walked past, but something made me stop. A volunteer approached me immediately. Are you looking to adopt? I don't know, I said. Maybe. I've never had a dog. Well, come meet some of our babies. She introduced me to several dogs, but none of them clicked. Then she brought out Max, a 3-year-old golden retriever who'd been surrendered when his previous owner moved overseas. He's a sweetheart, the volunteer said. Great with people, house-trained, loves to cuddle. Max looked at me with soulful brown eyes and wagged his tail. I knelt down and he immediately pressed his head against my chest. Something in my heart cracked open. I'll take him, I said. The volunteer blinked. Don't you want to think about it? We usually recommend, I'll take him. Bringing Max home transformed the house. Suddenly, I had a reason to wake up at a consistent time each morning. I had someone who needed me, who was excited to see me, who didn't care about money or success or family drama. He just wanted food, walks, and affection. We developed a routine. Morning walks before work, evening walks after. On weekends, we'd go to the dog park where Max would run himself exhausted chasing tennis balls. I'd sit on a bench and watch him, feeling something close to peace. Dr. Reeves said the dog was good for me. You're learning to trust again, she said. To let someone depend on you without fearing they'll hurt you. She was right. Max's unconditional love slowly taught me that not every relationship was transactional. Around this time, I also started volunteering. A local nonprofit ran coding workshops for underprivileged kids, and they were always looking for mentors. I started teaching a Saturday morning class, basic programming concepts for middle schoolers who couldn't afford expensive camps or private tutors. The first session was awkward. I wasn't used to working with children. But by the 3rd week, I'd found my rhythm. The kids were hungry to learn, asking questions faster than I could answer them. One girl, Taylor, reminded me sharply of myself at that age. Quiet, intense, absorbing everything. You're really good at this, she told me after class one day. You think so? Yeah, my teacher at school just reads from textbooks. You actually explain things so they make sense. The compliment meant more than any performance review ever had. I started preparing more elaborate lessons, bringing in guest speakers, organizing a hackathon where the kids could showcase their projects. Taylor built a website to help her grandmother track medications. Another student created a game about climate change. Watching them succeed felt better than any personal achievement. 1.5 years after the beating, about 6 months after I'd started the company, I received a letter from my mother. It had been forwarded through Diane, who'd screened it first to make sure it wasn't threatening. The envelope was thin, the handwriting shaky. I opened it with trembling fingers, not sure what to expect. The letter was 2 pages long, written on cheap notebook paper. My mother's words were carefully chosen, clearly rehearsed. She didn't apologize for the assault. Instead, she explained it away. They'd been under stress. Emotions had been high. Things had gotten out of hand. Then came the real purpose, a request for money. Not $1.5 million this time, but $50,000, just enough to help them get back on their feet. My father couldn't find decent work with his record. They were behind on rent. Brooke was struggling too. Surely I could spare something now that I had so much. The letter ended with a line that made my blood boil. We're still your parents. Blood is thicker than water. I read it twice, feeling my pulse accelerate. Then I called Diane. Did you see what she wrote? I asked. I did, Diane said. What do you want to do? Can I respond, or would that violate the restraining order? You can respond through me. I'd advise against direct contact. Diane paused. What do you want to say? I thought about it for a long moment. Part of me wanted to write a scathing response listing every way they'd failed me. Part of me wanted to ignore it completely. In the end, I dictated a single sentence for Diane to send. The answer is no, and any future requests will be ignored. Diane sent the letter on my behalf. I never heard whether my parents responded. But I did take one additional step. I put my mother's letter through my paper shredder, watching the words dissolve into meaningless strips. Then I deleted every digital photo I had of my parents and Brooke. I removed them from my emergency contacts. I updated my medical directives to ensure they'd have no say in my healthcare decisions. I erased them systematically, deliberately, completely. Dr. Reeves asked if I felt guilty about cutting them off so thoroughly. No, I said honestly. I feel free. The company hit its first major milestone that spring. We developed an AI-powered project management tool that several Fortune 500 companies wanted to license. The contracts were worth millions. My team worked around the clock, finalizing the software, fixing bugs, preparing for the launch. The night before the official release, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how far I'd come. 2 years ago, I'd been unconscious on a restaurant floor, beaten by my own parents. Now, I was running a successful company, living in a beautiful house, surrounded by people who actually cared about me. The transformation felt surreal. The product launch went flawlessly. Within a month, we'd signed contracts with 8 major clients. Within 3 months, we hired 10 more employees and moved into a proper office space. The investors were thrilled. Kevin kept joking that I'd made him rich, but success brought visibility, and visibility brought unwanted attention. I found out about the interview from a colleague who sent me a link with a concerned message. Is this your family? The article was in a local alternative newspaper known for human interest stories. The headline read, "Parents speak out about daughter who abandoned them." My stomach dropped as I read it. My mother and father had given a lengthy interview, painting themselves as victims of a cruel, money-hungry daughter. According to them, Ruth's trust fund had poisoned me. I'd become obsessed with wealth and status. When they tried to have a calm family conversation about helping Brooke with her education, I'd overreacted and made false accusations that led to their arrest. The article quoted my mother saying, "We may have raised our voices, but we never meant to hurt her. She's exaggerated everything to justify taking money that should have been shared with the whole family." There were photos. My parents looking tired and worn in their tiny apartment, crying into the camera. a picture of their foreclosed house with a caption about losing everything. The article ended with my mother's plea. "We just want our daughter back. We're willing to forgive everything if she'll come home." I read the whole thing twice, my hands shaking with rage. Then I forwarded it to Diane with a single question. "Can we sue?" She called me back within an hour. "Possibly for defamation," she said, "but I'd advise against it." "Why?" I asked. "Suing would give them more attention, which is what they want," Diane said. "It would keep you tied to them in the public eye." "So I just let them lie?" "You let them tell their version," she said, "and you live your truth. Anyone who actually knows you will see through it." Her voice softened. "I know it's hard, but engaging with them, even through a lawsuit, gives them power. Ignoring them takes it away." She was right. But that didn't make the anger any easier to bear. Jennifer from work showed me the supportive comments people had left on the company's social media after someone connected the article to me. "Don't listen to tabloid garbage. We know the real you. Family isn't always blood." My team rallied around me without making a big deal of it. Tyler brought coffee. Sarah organized a happy hour. Nobody mentioned the article directly, but their support was clear. Stephanie called that evening, furious. "I saw what they did," she said. "Those manipulative liars." She took a breath. "Do you want me to write a response? Set the record straight?" "No," I said. "Diane says engaging with them just makes it worse. They're making you look like a monster." "To people who don't know me," I said. "Everyone who matters knows the truth." I paused. "I'm not giving them any more of my energy. They've taken enough." Stephanie was quiet for a moment. "You're stronger than I could be." "I learned from the best," I said, thinking of Grandma Ruth. The article faded from public consciousness within a week, replaced by newer scandals and tragedies. A few people who didn't know me well asked about it, and I gave them the abbreviated truth. My parents had assaulted me, been convicted, and were now trying to rewrite history. Most people accepted this explanation and moved on, but the experience left me shaken. I thought enough time had passed. Instead, my parents were still trying to control the narrative, still trying to paint themselves as victims. Dr. Reeves helped me process it. "They're desperate," she said. "Their lives fell apart and they can't accept responsibility. Blaming you is easier than facing what they did." "Will it ever stop?" I asked. "Probably not completely," she said, "but it will get easier to ignore, and eventually people will stop caring about their story." She was right again. Within a month, I'd almost forgotten about the article. My life was too full, too positive to waste energy on their bitterness. I reconnected with old friends from college who'd heard about my company. We met for dinner, and it felt surprisingly normal, like no time had passed. They asked about the business, about my house, about Max. Nobody brought up my family unless I did first. Some people never learn. They'd beaten me unconscious, tried to steal from me, fought the consequences every step of the way, and now they wanted me to rescue them? No. I owed them nothing. Grandma Ruth had made sure of that. 2 years later, a full 4 years after that night at Marcello's, my company landed a major contract with a tech giant. The deal was worth millions. My team celebrated with champagne in the office. That night, I went home to my house, fed Max, and sat on my back porch watching the sunset. My phone buzzed, a message from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was Brooke. "I hope you're happy. Mom and Dad are miserable. You destroyed this family." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back, "No, you destroyed it when you decided my money was more important than my safety. Don't contact me again." I blocked the number and deleted the message thread. The truth was, I was happy. Happier than I'd ever been when I'd been trying to earn approval from people who would never give it. Happier than I'd been pretending that blood relation meant something when there was no love behind it. Grandma Ruth had known. She'd seen what my parents were, what Brooke was becoming. She protected me the only way she could, with airtight legal documents and an attorney who took her job seriously. My real family now consisted of my aunt and uncle, my friends from work, my dog, and the life I built without anyone's help but my own. And somewhere, I like to think Grandma Ruth was smiling. They demanded $1.5 million from me. Instead, they'd lost everything they had and handed me the life I'd always deserved. The lawyer who showed up in that hospital room hadn't just delivered news. She delivered justice, wrapped in legal clauses my grandmother had crafted years earlier, anticipating the worst from the people she was supposed to trust most. Sometimes the best revenge isn't something you plan. Sometimes it's something someone who loved you planned for you, knowing you'd need protection when they were gone. I raised my glass of wine to the sunset, to Grandma Ruth, and to the future I'd earned despite everything. "Thank you," I whispered. The sky turned purple and gold. Max pressed his head against my leg. Inside the house, my phone lit up with messages from my team, already excited about our next project. I smiled and went inside, closing the door on the past.